A year ago or so, I found a secondhand dress on eBay that had a fitted bodice, a really high waistline, and was attached to a gathered skirt. The only things I knew about it were that I loved it made me feel like I was in a Bridgerton episode, and it really popped when I stood next to some rose bushes. But what was it? Well, it was an Empire line dress. Today, I'm going to take you on a whistle-stop tour about how this silhouette developed and what it represented in Europe during 3 eras around a century apart: the 1800s, 1900s, and today. So strap yourselves in as we begin by jumping back 200 years to the It's 1786 and it's good times in Versailles. We're living it up with Louis XVI and Marie Antionette in our big pannier dresses in the French court. Some peasants come knocking at the door and the monarchy's gone. After the French Revolution, a new kind of dress swept across Europe. It represented a drastic break with the monarchy and the over-the-top court dress that went with it. It was liberating in a physical sense, doing away with cumbersome corsets and panniers. It was egalitarian with its unvarying cut and colour, and it was unassuming, fraternal, as opposed to individualised Rococo ostentation. Ironically enough, one of the influences was back in 1783 with Marie's chemise à la reine dress that caused absolute havoc when a painting of it was originally put on display in the Louvre. It was inspired by designs of the Caribbean and was, as you know, a lot less formal than the court dress at the time, and she was highly criticised for it. The new revolutionary dress, steeped in colonialist and monarchist history, made its way into the 1800s, taking inspiration from a whole range of styles along the way, eventually developing into the dresses we see in Jane Austen's adaptations today. The Empire line dress started fading away in the 1820s and had essentially fully disappeared by the 1830s, replaced by large sleeves and lower waistlines. We didn't really see the Empire line dress again for over 100 years until it re-emerged in the We're in Europe in the early 1900s now. A brand new motorcar buzzes past you and you marvel at its incredible speed as you go to attend your suffragette meeting wearing your S-bend corset. The early 1900s were a time of science and technology progressing at an incredible pace. It was also a great time of social change. Fashion was quickly adapting to reflect these radical changes. These illustrations depicting images of Paul Poiret's designs show how the restrictive S-shaped silhouette that had preceded it was fading away in place of reimagined regency-style looks. Notably, Paul declared the death of the corset at this stage, although the amazing designer Madeleine Vionnet was officially the first designer to make dresses that didn't need a corset. These designers and many more ushered in a new phase of fashion with a silhouette that was equal parts Orientalism and early 19th century Empire line revival. Alongside the very clear Oriental influences, I think we can see the Regency revival quite clearly in one of Paul's day dresses, which seems to be heavily inspired by this dress from the Regency period, with its sheer fabric and embroidered floral design. The Empire line faded out to a large degree in place of the more boxy silhouette of the 1920s. We then saw it re-emerge at various points throughout the 1900s, but in the interest of time, let's zoom ahead to the It's 2018 and you're scrolling through the blogging platform Tumblr and discover a niche movement that's emerging, mainly with suburban teens and queer youth, that revelled in the romance of a pastoral life and a return to a simpler, more sustainable way of living. What you're looking at was, of course, the cottagecore trend. In March 2020, the UK and many other countries around the world go into lockdown due to coronavirus. With lockdowns happening and people spending drastically more time at home and on social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, the cottagecore trend grew dramatically. Although this trend borrows from a range of historical references, the Empire line played a large role in this trend, and we saw modernised versions of the dress on the runway with designers like Brock, Rodin, Erdem and Yuhan Wang taking the lead. Needless to say, media like Bridgerton and Emma were also both influenced by and influencers for the popularisation of the empire line dress off the back of the cottagecore trend. So there you have it, a whistle-stop tour through the history of the empire line dress. Apart from obviously loving the style, I found it really interesting to discover how this style of dress has meant many different things to many different generations throughout the last 300 years. During the 1800s, it represented a break from the over-the-top court dress. In the 1900s, it represented the new woman who began to have more say in politics. And in the 2000s, it represents a sense of escapism from technology and the complexities of modern life. Thanks for listening.